Hello everyone, how are you? This is Cantor Gaston Bogomolny broadcasting from North Miami Beach for for Vestor Avenue Rock Campus in North Miami Beach, Florida, United States. So today we have a very special parasha. It's um It's a very special parasha. Why I said it's special? Because every parasha is special. But this talks about, the name of the parasha is called Toldot, kind of genealogy, right? The Toldot, the the lineage, the family tree, and so I found this a very interesting point, especially for what we are going to talk today. We today we're going to be talking about the revealing the the wells, from within. So why the wells? What are we talking about the wells? What are we talking about? Remember just also that from 2 to 2:30 we do conversations with the clergy in English, and then from 2:30 to 3 we'll have a conversation con el clérigo en español. So it's half an hour in English and half an hour in Spanish. If you find that Spanish is a language that you connect more, uh, you know, you're welcome to stay, but at the same time, also you're welcome to come back at 2:30. Si español es el idioma que a ustedes le viene mejor, entonces les propongo que puedan volver a las 2:30, 14:30, para aquellos que viven en Sudamérica o en España o en otro lugar del mundo. Pero bueno, entonces estamos con el tema de Toldot. Sorry, going back to English. So we are talking about Toldot. We're talking about this idea of family, and not only that it's just family itself. And we know now who is our main character. Our main character is Isaac, right? So that's a very important point here. And we talked last week, how important was Isaac in our parasha, and this parasha also is very important because it's kind of the end part of the story of Isaac. Because from now on, remember that in this parasha we have now the birth of the twins, and the birth of the twins we're talking about Esau, and also talking about Yaakov, and we know that from now on we have the whole story of Jacob, and so now sometimes we pay so much attention also just to the birth of the twins and the birth of these two brothers, and the rivalry, in the womb with Rivka, and deceiving and truth, right? I mean, one deceives the other brother to get the blessing of the firstborn. Mom says to Jacob to deceive his father, and then so it's a lot of kind of like the triangular type of episodes, here, and it's interesting, and a lot of people pay a lot of attention to that and come up with a lot of midrashim, and today I just want to bring something different, because every year we study the Torah and we find something different. And I was telling just my wife Marcela today that when I was studying, the parasha, and especially, since we started Breshit again, and I said this last week as well, I feel this year, maybe because of the pandemic, and the COVID, and working many times also from home, and going back and forth, and not being able to visit my kids. So a lot of work also within, for myself and within myself, and a lot of introspection in my life, and I hope that happened to you too, right? Whether just as a person or also as a couple, as a family, as an individual in the community. It's just that I think that the COVID and the pandemic, just give us like a few slaps on in our faces, and made us think about so many things. Not only think, but think and rethink, and to give thought, and be, and profoundly find answers of who we are, and where we are, and why we are, and what do we want. So I think that here is when we get when I get myself, to be so connected to Isaac, to Yitzhak, Avinu, and in this year. Also remember that Yitzhak is the representation, or is the forefather, the patriarch that represents in Kabbalah the Sephirah of Gevurah, right, which is the left side over here. I know, kind of place it on the body, and Gevurah is Gevurah, as we know very well, means strictness, means discipline. It means also comes from Givor, something who is a hero, a martyr, or you know, and we always talk about the balancing, with Gevurah, and then the Chesed, which was Abraham, who is more the loving kindness, the benevolence, more the allowance of the, um, so in Gevurah, and this is again, why the connection is that when we think about being confined in quarantine and being just, things that actually in a way could give us enough reasons to frustrate ourselves, or to be frustrated, and to be totally out of place, and to feel anger, upsetness, disappointments, and that's a constant that can easily happen, in a situation like we are right now. And so I'm thinking also about Isaac, who went through so much, and we talk about that. He got all the slaps in the face. He got almost killed by his father, right? I mean, he got, traumatized, as we understand it. And some people think that he earned the Sephirah. He got to be the winner and the recipient of that Sephirah of Gevurah, because he did not react. He didn't. He was 37 years old when that happened with his father, and he could easily have gone and hit his father and his face and say, "What are you doing? Are you crazy? Are you gaga? What's going on with you, Dad? You went nuts, right?" And punch him on the face. And no, he had the respect. He followed along, and yet, he controlled himself, and he disciplined himself, and he was able to contrite himself, right, in a way to really content, himself, and I think that's important. So that's why I want to bring today, right, this aspect of Isaac, and also specifically because the parasha is called Toldot, and in every parasha we mainly have someone who had kids, and then the lineage is this and the lineage is that, and he had this kid and he bore this son and this daughter. But here there's something else about Toldot, and which has to do with the wells. The wells that Abraham dig, the Abraham dug originally in his dug in his in the story of Abraham, and that represents so many things. Wells can be interpreted so many things, especially in Judaism, and mainly in the depth side of Judaism. It could be Musar or Kabbalah, any meditational work that we might know of that comes from Judaism, is specifically that wells carry water. Water is representation of life, and not only water but also Mayim Chaim, which is living waters. And the Torah is also mentioned many times as to be compared with water, and not only that is compared with water, but even you remember that we read the Torah, on Mondays, on Thursdays, and also on Saturdays, on Shabbat in the morning and in the afternoon. And the main question is, why do we read Torah during the week as well? If Shabbat and holidays would be enough. So the main answer from the sages and the rabbis is that because Torah is like Maim, right? It's like water. Then that we cannot live, or we wouldn't be able to live without water, for more than 3 days, That's why we need to read Torah almost every 2 days or every 3 days. So we cannot live without Torah. We wouldn't be able to live without Torah, mime, with order, also for more than 3 days on a row. I'm sorry, I'm looking down like this sometimes. It's not that I'm getting distracted, or maybe it's that we acquire a new doggy, a new puppy, and her name is Talia, and she's little. She's 8 weeks old, and sometimes I don't want to lose sight of her. Now, so going now to the idea of the wells. So Isaac, in this parasha, and as I just mentioned, it says that Isaac. This is on Genesis, if you want to follow along, on chapter 26, verse 18. It says that Isaac dug again the wells of water. This is at the end of the parasha, which they had dug, in the days of Abraham, his father. For the Philistine had stopped them up after the death of Abraham. So Abraham died. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I need to open the door for the puppy to go outside, and so Abraham dug this door, and then they when he died, they closed the wells, and he called the names after the names, right, by which his father had called them. So this is a very interesting point. So Isaac dug again the wells of his father, and he didn't say, okay, I'm going to call them the different name. He wanted to honor his heritage. He wanted to honor his father. He wanted to honor who he is. And we are, right, a product of our parents, and we are a product of our heritage. In a way, if you might remember, just think about the wells as it would be a son or a daughter, and especially in the Sephardic tradition, the Ashkenazi tradition, we usually name our kids, or we put, after the, a grandfather or a great grandfather or great grandmother, someone who has passed probably away. And in the Sephardic tradition, we honor them not by the ones who just are deceased, but the ones who still alive. So if I have a firstborn boy in the family, he's going to have the same name of the grandfather. Interesting, right? So here again, talking about naming the wells the same way that his father did. So we here have a connection of how we connect with our families. It's a very interesting point. Now, so the spiritual work of Isaac was to dig wells, right? He had many, we talked about last week, but he had many, and one of them was the spiritual work, that was to dig wells. So now we are connecting digging wells with spirituality. So let's see what it means to us, as people and as individuals, and what we can learn in these next 15 minutes in order to get prepped for Shabbat in a more spiritual way. So the purpose of this work is to reveal the living waters which exist under the ground and to raise it up. And so it is not the purpose to make water flow into the wells from another source. The idea is not to go, to the waterfalls and get, something totally different and a different source. The idea is to reveal the living waters that exist under the ground, and from discovering them and revealing them, to raise them up. So first we need to dig, and digging is a very, very, very difficult, sometimes, and challenging spiritual work. Not only because it's hard, also because it's hard even to have the mindset to wanting to do it. That's the very difficult part, is to decide that you're going to dig. And sometimes what you're going to find might not be at the beginning the best, because you'll see later on that Isaac had challenges. Isaac found pebbles and found dirt and found mud and many different things. And we will also find all those sorts of things when we dig within ourselves, when we dig inside ourselves in an inner spiritual work. So Um, so this work teaches us that Isaac's spiritual work to remove all the veils of the physical world, right? To transform into a vessel for divinity. That's all a work that we all ought to do, and then to raise them up and be who we are, right? Because when we get the challenges and we get the pebbles and the stones, etc., etc., what we get is to work. Is really maybe what we compare in the physical world as the mundane stuff, or like the superficial talk or superficial stuff. That's exactly kind of what it means there. So, and like the living waters themselves, right, which rise up from below. So here we have a good presentation of what is the work that we have to do, and then we're going to learn a little more about what the walls were, right? So again, it is a spiritual challenge, and and let's learn a little bit about what happened to Isaac, because Isaac, you know, got to the place of his father, and the Plishtim said, you are wealthier than us, and you're worth it, you're worth more than that, and we want to, you need to remove yourself from here, right? So then they needed to start, digging, and let's see what's going on and what happened there. Um, Rabbi Shefa Gold, says that to be fully human is to be connected to our lineage, to experience the presence of our ancestors within us. How beautiful is that, right? I think I mentioned with you before that in the summer I did with my friend Gaba Resnik, who was the first one in these conversations with the clergy, my first interviewee, and he talked about sound healing. And when he did the work of sound healing, later on, after the exercise he did with me, over the phone, he discovered, and when he gave me a report, he discovered that they were he discovered and told me that he was able to sense my ancestors that accompany me, right? Like some people call maybe the angels that are around you, but he said that there are ancestors, souls of my ancestors, that they were around me, and that was just beautiful, because that means that we are always connected, but we don't sense them. He was able to sense them. Sometimes I'm not able to sense them, and maybe have you ever sensed your ancestors around you that are protecting you, that are guiding you? Well, you answer that at home, and but sometimes it does happen, and sometimes we might have it, we might not, and so to move on, it was just beautiful to think that to be fully human is to be connected with our lineage, to experience the presence of our ancestors within us. We receive the blessings of lineage by embracing the ancestors who live inside of us. Again, right? Look, we offer them our compassion and courage, and we receive the merit of their efforts, and we learn from their mistakes. Through our love, their power is freed. Their wounds are healed. Wow, it's just beautiful, right? Because we receive the merit of their effort. That means also think about you. You will be the ancestor of someone else. Today you are already an ancestor of someone, of your kids, of your grandkids. So it's just a beautiful thought, there. And also we learn from their mistakes as well, so we don't repeat them. So through the story, now that was said before, the Toldot, we learn to access our lineage. In his time, Abraham accomplished the work, the great work of digging the deep wells of the spiritual sustenance. And now it was Isaac's time, and we saw that they were obstructed, so Isaac lost, access to the wealth of his lineage. It's almost like someone cut your hand, and they remove yourself. They change your last name. You have no way, right? Thinking about, sometimes even adoption, and when a kid, who's adopted and wants to rediscover his lineage, all of a sudden, has not the same last name. Some do, but some don't. So that's why they always end up asking, right? Even in Argentina, when we had the missing kids, and they were given, by the dictatorship rulers to, to different politicians or different military, and all the time they were kind of adopted kids. They end up also, asking who they were. They wanted to know, where they come from. There is a time, where we need to discover and they need to know where we come from. It's so important. There is just almost like an innate question that comes. So to move on, on what we're just talking about, we, redigging this stopped wells of his father Abraham, Isaac finds the process in neither simple nor easy. In fact, he digs 3 wells before achieving a success and connection with their source. So each well has a name. It's interesting, right? Describes a marker on the journey towards deep connection. So the first name is Esek. The first well that they are digging is called Esek, means contention. So Rabbi Shefa Gold says that first, we dig the well of Esek, of contention, which is kind of like, like a argument. We scrabble in a rocky argument with our inheritance, rubbing up against its hard edges, fighting its constrictions and opening to its contradictions. Then he dug another well, and this well was called Sitna, enmity, which is like animosity. So when we dig the well of Sitna, of enmity, there we taste the contradictions of the traditions within us. So when we fight with our own traditions, when we come to know the suffering and struggles to our ancestors and the whole human family who have stood against one another, we cry out, as Isaac says, Im ken lama se anochi. If life is like this, with so much suffering, why am I? So we struggle. And now third point, the third, after digging and digging and digging in the spiritual, and revealing little by little, getting into the living waters, we get to the point, the moment of birthing. We dig the well of Rehovot, spaciousness. The well of our ancestors become a fountain connecting the dark depth of our human story with the wide skies of awareness. And we know also in the story of Toldot that we learn of the tragedy, the deception between brothers, the results of narrow belief, right? We talked about that before. And this says, that the system of limiting blessings and creating hierarchy is born of the belief that love and blessings are finite, that there are winners and losers. And this idea is drawn from the well of contention. And Rabbi Gold, continues saying that when I deceive my brother or attempt to steal the blessings from my sister, I am drawing on the well of enmity, Sitna, whose waters are poison, which will only drive me to greater thirst. And from the well of spaciousness, Rehovot, comes the wisdom that our fates are bound up with one another. Your loss, your suffering is also mine, and true blessing is now shared. At the well of spaciousness, I slake my thirst with the knowledge that the source of blessing knows no bounds, and that we are capable of accessing that blessing directly. So I will give you a guidance of practice, also coming from the source of Rabbi Shefa Gold, who writes beautifully. You can always find her writings on rabbishefagol.com, and she has a lot of good things there, great music also, and she's a renewal rabbi, and she's just amazing, and been for a while giving to all of us so much wisdom, and also, again, her music. So here's the guidance for practice, and I encourage you to take advantage of this. Redigging the wells of our ancestors called the practice, and write a list of your beliefs about yourself and your world. Question them. Who are you, and what is the nature of your existence? Notice all the contradicting beliefs that you carry within. Where did these beliefs come from? which of them remain useful. Now invoke the presence of your ancestors before your prayer. Ask for their encouragement, support, and inspiration. Go out in a place of spacious natural beauty and sing directly to God, the source of all life. Rise up your voice with or without words, without care for its pleasantness or correctness, just releasing the cry that is in you. Let your voice express the truth of where you are right now in the process of birthing yourself. And that's the guidance for practice, the spiritual exercise for everyone today, and hopefully you are able to reveal your own. You are able, hopefully, to reveal the living waters that are within yourself, and the connection that you all have with your own ancestors. We need to connect. Everything is about connection, and then we will get there. And I'm sorry, the image got frozen. Sometimes it happens with my Zoom. I don't know why, but I'll see everyone next week. I wish you Shabbat Shalom. I hope you can connect. Hopefully you can do the exercise and go from there. I'm sure you're going to find a lot. And remember that in order to find living wells within yourself, the living waters, you have to go through challenges, pebbles, mud, dirt, and that's okay. You have to accept who you are, radical acceptance, and because you are also part of that. And you might not like it, but you should accept it and then move on. Shabbat Shalom.